Hello and welcome to this episode of BookSmarts Authors on Show, a creation of Clarissa Burt, founder of In the Limelight Media. I am your host, Cristina Francy, and today I'm so thrilled to be interviewing Peggy McColl, who is a New York Times best-selling author. She's released 21 books in both fiction and nonfiction categories, and she has books translated into 37 languages and has sold books in close to 100 countries. Wow, Peggy, that is amazing. And what an accomplishment. So many books published all over the world. I mean, I could only imagine. So let the audience know a little bit about who you are, who is Peggy, and how did she get to where she is today?
That's such a great question. And thank you so much for having me here. I hear you introduce me and I think, wow, it's hard for me to believe that I have actually released 21 books. Not like it's a big deal, because I really don't think that it is. But when I think back to where I came from, I got into this business of personal development, of being interested in that when I was a suicidal teenager and had no will to live, obviously. And I was dragged kicking and screaming to a seminar that was being delivered by the late and great Bob Proctor. And that was in January 1979, so a few years ago now. And it was that night that things really shifted for me. He started talking about being in a prison of your own making, and that you can't escape it unless you know you're in one. And if you want your life to change, you must change. So I became an addict for personal development. I was just wanting to buy every book written and watch every movie and go to every seminar. And so in 1994, I incorporated my own company, started doing my own events and seminars and working with people. And then I decided to start writing a book. It wasn't planned to write several, but I wrote one that led to another, that led to another. And I really just decided that in the 90s that my purpose is to make a positive and a beneficial contribution to the lives of millions. And so I get up every day thinking about how can I serve people today that will help them live a better life, help them get out of emotional pain, help them go for their dreams, whatever that might be. And so I've been blessed to be in business now for almost 30 years on my own, and to be serving people all over the world. So that's kind of like the short version of who I am.
I love it. It's very inspiring. No, I love that. So talk a little bit about your recent book that's coming out.
I wrote this book called Savvy Wisdom from Beyond, and it is a fiction book, and Savvy is the name of a character. So I created two main characters, and it started with the original book called Savvy Wisdom that led to a sequel called Savvy Wisdom 2 that led to Savvy Wisdom from Beyond. And the reason why I wrote it is because my mentor, Bob Proctor, died. He passed away unexpectedly on February 3rd last year. And so I had this longing to connect with his spirit. And I had already written the first two Savvy Wisdom books, and he loved them. He really loved them. And they were out in the world and doing really well. And so I just thought, well, I can continue the dialogue with Savvy, or with my Savvy, Bob Proctor, through spirit. He would say that. He said, all you have to do is think of me and I'm there. And so different things started to occur where messages were being delivered in unusual ways. And I would dream and get advice from him in my dreams. And so, I just felt this overwhelming inspiration to write this book called Savvy Wisdom from Beyond. So it really is part of the trilogy, but it really speaks to the importance of understanding death, dying, and grief. And because in the book, what happens is, and I won't give it away, it'll be a spoiler alert, but what happens is, of course, her mentor has passed on, so she starts to connect with him in spirit form, but her mother gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so he guides her through this entire process because they know she's going to pass away, and he guides her through what's going to happen in the afterlife, and also like not detail, but just helping her understand where she's going and what's going on, and then how to deal with the grief in a very healthy way, unusual and unlike anything I've ever seen. So that book I actually just released. It is right now in the hands of a major movie production studio.
Ooh.
as yeah, they brought it in. It's interesting how things happen, but the president of the studio ended up reading it and loved it.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so that's going on right now. I can't say anything because apparently they have to be the one to announce it to the world, based on their legalities. But it's almost like taking on a life of its own, which is really exciting. And but the comments from the readers have been quite warm and welcoming, like just people talking about grief and how they've lost people. Who doesn't lose people, right? We all do.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how old you are. We've all lost someone and will lose a loved ones, and it's just a different way of looking at death and dying. And the people that are reading it are like, oh my goodness, like it's so incredibly unique and helpful as well. And so I'm loving that it's making a positive difference out there in the world.
Yeah, well, you had a little bit of John Proctor, touching it and helping, and maybe he's helping push it forward too in the spirit
Right.
world too. So it's amazing how things work, and it's so great that you were actually able to have like a relationship with your mentor and things like that. So that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So what kind of caused you to switch from writing nonfiction to fiction? I know you kind of went back and forth with that. So what was
Yeah.
the premise for that?
Well, I've been working with authors. I also teach authors how to write books, how to bring them out to the world, either publish or self-publish, and then how to make them bestsellers, and also how to earn money by being an author. And so one of my team members had sent me an email, and it was a list of video topics to create short tip videos, for social media channels. And on this list was the topic of how I wrote my first fiction book. And I looked at it and I would have immediately just gone to the next item on the list because I hadn't written a fiction book myself. I'd work with fiction authors. I teach how to write fiction, but I'd never written one and never even thought about writing one. So rather than going to the next topic, I just asked myself, would I like to write a fiction book? And I thought, yes, I would. And then I asked myself, what do I need to believe in order to write a great one? Well, I need to believe that it's possible. I need to believe that I can do it, and I need to see it already done in my mind's eye and just visualize it's already a great product. And I set a date for completion. And this email had come in my inbox around October 31st, and I decided I would start November 1. And by the 10th of November, the book was written. Now, I don't have a clear schedule. I've got a really busy schedule. I'm a busy girl, with my business and everything. And so I just went into my agenda and I blocked off hours here, there, got up a little earlier on some days, and I wrote it. And it was the best experience I've ever had writing. What I love about writing fiction, even though it is inspired by real life events, is you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Just go anywhere. It's just like wherever you want this to go. And there's certain different types of writers with fiction. There's some that create an outline and they've got the whole thing identified and the characters and they're all developed and all of that. And then there are discovery writers who just fingers on the keyboard and what flows, flows. And that's the way I wrote. I'm a discovery writer. So I didn't even know what the book was going to be called when I started, and just allowed it to flow. And it was a blast. And I'm very, very grateful to do it. And I just find it so much fun to write. And what's interesting is, I wrote the 19th book during COVID, the first year of COVID, and the next one, the second year of COVID, and the third one in the third year of COVID, is that fiction sales rose significantly during COVID. And it is $1 billion business. It's $122 billion a year in sales for books. You probably already know all of that. But fiction books increased. And I really think it's because people want to be entertained more than educated.
Yeah.
And right.
Escapism.
So yeah, exactly. Escapism. Exactly. So, I wrote it in a way that it is an escape. Like you're reading about the story. It starts, the first one starts with this girl, Sophie. She went to the park to kill herself. And then she meets this man who just appears there. And that's where Savvy comes in. And, but that's why I switched genres. And I don't know if I'll go back to writing nonfiction. Maybe. I get lots of ideas for books, but I sure do love writing fiction.
Well, you're definitely the jack of all trades when it comes to writing books. You can do it all. So as long as you put your mind to it, you can get it done.
Right.
So how long did it take you to write your books?
Well, I've written one of my books I actually wrote in a weekend.
Wow.
Not my fiction books, but I wrote a nonfiction book in the weekend. I think it doesn't have to take years. And I think that's one of the things a lot of people believe is it's going to take years to write a book, or a long, long, long time. And the answer is no, it doesn't. And so when I wrote my Savvy Wisdom books, I would say they probably, each of them took, like, the first one was a couple of weeks. The second one was probably around 3 weeks. And the third one was 3 weeks as well. But again, it was just sort of part-time here, there, and everywhere in the writing process. But it really speaks to the ability that we all have to hold an idea with our will, and to just block out everything else that's around you. Like, I'd come in my office, I'd sit in my writing chair, which is over there in the corner, make sure the door is closed, the phone's off, no apps open, and write, so that I'm not being disturbed in any way. And I really believe that makes a big difference.
Yeah. And one of the things that you pointed out is I like how you would block off time in your schedule, and that's
Yes.
really what people need to do in order to achieve kind of anything that they want, like whether it's a business goal, you're going to block off time for like whatever your goal is, like the email setting or marketing plan,
Yes.
block off your writing time. Like, I think that that's a really valuable tool to use in any day of your life, because then you just schedule around it, and it's only temporary, and it's like you have already committed that to yourself, and it's on the schedule, and you're going to get it done, and everything else works around that. So I really liked that you had brought that tool up for how you were writing your book. You scheduled it out for your first one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's, how you approach anything is makes a big difference for sure. Because that's what I, decided before I even started writing that type of book. Is I decided that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have fun with it, and I'm going to see a great product at the end, rather than, because I see people approaching things and they're not believing that they're going to do it, or that it's going to be a big challenge, and they're already in their own way.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
So
me.
I think it's about, get into your own way and just get on with the work. And, I really feel life is meant to be fun, and, people just aren't having fun. And I think it's important nowadays, especially, that we inject some fun. So if you're going to do it in a way that you're going to enjoy the process at the same time.
No, I agree. Yeah, people need to start having more fun. We're so serious, or we're so concerned about the outcome, and like thinking already that it's going to be a failure before we even start doing it. I know something for me, I've always wanted to like publish a book, whether that be a fiction book or, nonfiction, whatever, like self-development, I'm really into that as well. And I stand in my own way for it, like, oh, well, I'm just like not very good at like grammar, or,
Right.
who am I? Like, I don't read that many books, so how can I be a writer? But I feel like it's something I want to do, but I get in my own way for it, or like, oh, wait, that's too big of a
Yeah.
challenge. I can't do it. Like, how do you start it? What's the outline? Do I just write? Like, what do I do?
Right. Yeah. And that's true. And you're not alone in that. I hear that all the time. I mean, even when I decided to write my first book, I had this little voice in my head, going, who the hell do you think you are? Like this kind of thing. And I remember telling my parents I was going to write a book, and they were like, you're writing a book? I mean, that was their response.
Yeah.
Obviously non-supportive, but I wasn't looking for their approval or their support. I'd always been a little bit of a brat as a kid.
Yeah.
So I think that served me to some degree, because I didn't need someone else's approval to do something. But it's definitely one of the things that prevents people from writing their books. A big one is, whether they have it in them to do it. Whether they think they're a great writer or not. You don't have to be a great writer. I absolutely know that's true. And what will people think? That's another one that holds a lot of people back from doing it. But the thing that I found, like even with writing my first book, is it's such a great sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
And I remember writing my first book and thinking, even if nobody reads this, that's okay, because it's been such a rewarding experience just writing it.
Well, you have something tangible, because you still have it printed out for you to have on your bookshelf,
Right.
and something that you can show, like, look what I did. It's not just I don't know. It's a work of art that you can still have in your hand. So it's great. And it kind of I feel like it like gives you like some credit, like I'm an author,
Well, sure.
like kind of gets like you a little bit more credibility for whatever it is you're selling or doing or whatever.
Absolutely true. Just as you said that, I think that was one of the most exciting things. I'd be on an airplane flying somewhere and someone say, "What do you do?" I'm an author. And and so it just feels good to say it as well. And there's no prerequisite, right? Like, what's the prerequisite? Desire. That's it. You don't have to go to school or get another degree or anything like that. You just write a book. The prerequisite is, do you want to?
Yeah. So what has some of the feedback been from your readers?
Well, a lot of them have been appreciating, especially in the trilogy of Savvy Wisdom. They appreciate that it's like watching an inspiring movie kind of ideas, that they're getting brought into a story and they really connect with the characters. And that's ultimately what you want your readers to do. And of course, they're cheering for them and rooting them on, but they're learning from what they're going through. Like, I think about the second book that's in the series. I wrote this after I had just got out of the hospital. I'd been diagnosed, and this was completely unexpected. It was the second year of COVID. I've been diagnosed with metastatic cancer.
Oh, wow.
And it was in my neck, like all throughout my neck and my mouth and my tongue.
Interesting.
And I went through these horrific treatments. It was just a hell, a version of hell. And of course, because I'm into the personal development industry and, a teacher, speaker, author on that, I just used what I teach to manage through the experience. I'd been hospitalized for a couple of weeks. I was so sick. And I got through it, and no more cancer. Bye-bye. It's all gone, and, completely clear. And I didn't even finish the treatments because they made me so sick. And when I got out of the hospital, I thought, a lot of people have been asking me, how did you get through that? How did you get through that experience? How did you heal from that? And so I thought, well, Sophie, the main character that I created in this book, I'll have her go through it. And so I wrote the sequel to the book so that, it could be a great example of what happens. So people that are reading the books, their response is like, "Oh my goodness, I can totally relate to that," because, and then they're telling me about their issues, the things that they're going through now or have gone through, or they know someone who's going through a similar situation. It's like, who do you not know who hasn't gone through cancer, right? Like that.
Yeah.
It just seems to be everywhere. And I mean, some families a little more than others. My family carried the gene. Like, my mother had it, my father had it, my brother died from it, my sister had it, and I had it. So hello, it's a pretty big one. So it's something that they can relate to. And so that's what the feedback's been, is how they're relating to the messages and how they're finding it's really helping them.
No, it's really important. I was just recently diagnosed with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, and it is such a mental game when it comes to healing your body. They say it's uncurable, but you can cure yourself without Western medicine. And
right.
I was having so many issues with insurance on trying to get what I needed for my treatments. And it was just roadblock after roadblock. And I'm like, well, what if this is like God's way of saying, no, I don't want you to take this, because it's like chemicals basically you're putting into your body. And you wanted to do like infusions and biologics, all that stuff. But what I did was I was like, oh, well, I'll just try like a tablet. So they got me on like mesalamine, which is like a main basic thing, I guess. And I was on it for 2 weeks and I already had like an allergic reaction, like underneath my eyes were swollen and like bruised. And in Chinese medicine, they say that it's like your liver, it's connected to that. So maybe my liver wasn't able to process it well.
Yes, right.
But the reason why I brought that up is that it is so important for your mental health in order to cure yourself, I feel like. And you brought up an example like about with you, and cancer is like way more severe than what I have, but how I've been able to manage and live my life and be the mother to my children is my lifestyle, my mental health, doing some physical activity for myself, as well as like the meditation, like the food I put
Yeah.
in my body, and just really listening to myself. And things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And,
Agree.
you know, what happened to you was a great way to show an example of how other people can, you know, conquer the things that happen to them. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you know, like I said, that's my motto. They don't happen to you, it happens for you. Like what happened to me and what I have, it's not mine. It's just something that I get to experience. And it's a beautiful opportunity for me to even elevate myself even more and give me more
Right.
of that drive for healing and remission and all those things. So I
Agreed.
think it's really beautiful. The second series sounds great too.
Yeah, I think it's really important because, you know, when I had been diagnosed, I just immediately asked, what's great about this? Where's the blessing in this? And I never identified myself as, you know, I don't call myself a cancer survivor. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If somebody wants to identify themselves in my mind, and it's weird, I suppose to some, it's like it didn't even happen to me. It happened to somebody else. I know it happened to me because, you know, I was there, but I don't feel traumatized by it. Like
Mhm.
it's not something that I'm dragging the baggage with me into today, because I know that won't serve me. So it's like, I'm healed, bonus, let's get back to work. So
Yeah.
if I see somebody I haven't seen for a while, like I saw someone the other day and they said, how are you feeling? You know, like that, you know, like you're some kind of an invalid. How are you feeling? It's like, and I was kind of puzzled, you know, why is he even talking to me like that?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, right. He knew or heard that I had gone through what I went through. And I said, I feel great. I'm like, perfectly fine. I said, I'm, you know, as good as ever, you know,
Yeah.
energetic. I'm a pretty energetic person, you know, for my
Mhm.
age, you know, I'm a high energy girl. So I just feel fantastic. I don't feel like any degradation or any negative influence from, you know, what occurred. It happened. It is, it's in the past, moved on.
Yeah.
So, you know,
You have
learn
to
from
let go of that in order to stay healed. I feel like, you know, you have to let it go. If you're
it.
carrying it over with you, it's just you're just going to repeat the cycle again. So it's really important.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. You're so right. And you know, really what it also speaks to is we can take these experiences that are not, you know, desirable or not our best life experiences, but use them for the good, for the greater good. And that's what I did. You know, like I wasn't hiding the fact to my audience or my, you know, my subscribers or my clients that I had it. I was very
Mhm.
vocal, very clear. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to go through. And I brought in guest teachers for some of my classes. And, you know, because they were wondering, well, how did she get cancer? You know, she's the positive thinking girl or whatever. It's like, you know, it happened. And I
Yeah.
know why it happened. Actually, it was something that was brought on by stress. Like I love real estate. And I had, at that time, I had multiple properties and I started having challenges with two of them, and they weren't little challenges. They were major challenges. And my husband and I were really frustrated with what was going on. And I
Mhm.
know I went through this at a time where I was feeling stress. Stress is a destroyer. I mean,
Yeah.
it'll just contaminate everything in its path. So it is what it is. Learned, got the t-shirt, moved on.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I feel like I'm currently going through a divorce, and I think a lot of like what my problems were was just like kind of like narcissistic relationship abuse type
Right.
of things that can cause stress. And
Yes.
so it was just like, you know, piling and piling and piling. And then I was just like, I just got really sick out of nowhere. And I was just like, what is going on? I lost like a ton of weight and didn't know what was going on. And I was just like really fatigued. Anyway, I don't need to go into the details, but, you know, also knowing what your triggers are and what's happening. But the important message that you said there was stress, whether that's real estate stress, relationship stress, just circumstances in life stress can really, you know, cause your body havoc. You know, a disease
Oh
is your
yeah.
body is at dis-ease, like you're not listening, you're
Yeah.
uncomfortable, you know. And you know, with an illness, it's like just triggering everything inside. It's all from inflammation, and inflammation is caused by disease. So, or caused by
Yes.
stress. So anyway, we're
Yeah.
kind of switching, kind of getting far off topic here, but I love what we're talking about. But I really want to know, will there be another book in the series?
Well, you know, what's interesting is I had a call recently from a producer, and this is all part of this, you know, studio that has the book right now. And they said to me, get ready to come to LA. And so they wanted to sort of plant the seed that I'm going to be going there. And secondly, they want to know what your next book is. And so I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I just released book number 21, and it wasn't that long ago that I wrote it. And I hadn't really been thinking of the next one, but I suspect the studio wants to know because, you know, it could end up becoming a series or another movie or whatever. So I do have an idea for a 22nd book, and I won't say what it is because it'll give away something of the 23rd, or no, my 21st book. Yeah, but I am, it'll be another fiction book, and it'll be a carry-on from this. I'm not going to have it be a part of the series per se. It'll be another book, but if anyone's read Savvy Wisdom, it'll be like, oh yeah, this makes sense because they've read the other books.
So how can people get their hands on Savvy Wisdom?
Just go to Amazon. They're all up on Amazon and all the Amazon sites. Now, Savvy is a name. It's not a word. So Savvy Wisdom, it's SAVY. And the reason why it's called Savvy Wisdom is because Savvy's a character. And so it stands for Stephen Alexander Vaughan. That's the main guru that helps this girl, Sophie. And they're all up on Amazon.com.
Awesome. Well, Peggy, thank you so much for coming on this episode of BookSmarts Authors on Show. It was such a fruitful conversation, and all of Peggy's links are down below in the show notes. Don't be shy, go say hi, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.